up in the corner. Those are the safes. There's one there and there's one here. That's where you would keep all your valuables. Over here is a picture of Justin PA. He would have been the great-grandson that would inherit this, but he died in the war and is buried in Europe. Over here you see a map. If you want to go around to take a picture. This mansion was built by the Shrees brothers, and over here, up there, you'll see Shreesville, because this was called Shreesville. And then Mount Holly is here, and then the Rancocas Creek goes here to the Delaware, and Philadelphia is here, which is an important thing to remember because it gives you access to the trains that Hezekiah built. So coming through here. Here I'll just give you some history. If you want to take some pictures as you walk around, I'll give you some history. The mansion was built by the Shrees brothers in 1840, and they made calico print material, and that material, they had trouble, they went bankrupt because the tariffs in Europe were raised, and it made the competition for the material coming from overseas put them out of business, and they couldn't get cotton here. So they went out of business, they went bankrupt. There were two brothers. One brother had 10 children, and hence the size of the mansion. And the other brother that outlived them was Benjamin. He inherited this, and they were trying to sell it. And then a man named Hezekiah Smith from Woodstock, Vermont bought it. This table was left here by Grace Thomas. Grace Thomas was the owner of the mansion at one time, and when she left, the table was too big to take anywhere else, and she brought it here. This was the dining room over here, and on the behind you here was the kitchen. So the kitchen, when Hezekiah bought it, he entertained a lot of people, and so he wanted a larger dining room. So he made it all a dining room and then added the kitchen here in the back. So that's a whole new section.
Okay.
And then Hezekiah used the iron foundry, and he built these radiators. You'll see these radiators throughout the mansion. They still heat the house. And if you look down this way, you can see that the wall was cut out to accommodate the radiator. So yeah, you can just do a span like that, keep going around. This is the family parlor. All the furniture in the building is time appropriate. The wallpapers are all reproductions of that time period. The fireplaces have been altered to do coal and or wood. Hezekiah had arthritis and liked things to be warm. He also embellished them with tiles. The tiles were made in Trenton. There was a big tile industry in Trenton. The game book, the game set is always reminds me to tell you that the railroad came through here. And I said that was significant because he could build his machines and have them delivered to all the cities in the US. This is the Jersey Mechanic, which was produced on Thursdays. And it shows the machinery that was built here. This one is a mortise machine, which we have one up in the billiard room.
One thing while you're here in this room is to look at the rugs. The rugs were, as you can see, all the rugs in the house were like that wide. They were rolled, came in rolls, spread out and cut to the size of a room, and then sewed together to look like wall-to-wall carpeting. And it was that kind of seamstress that Hezekiah's first wife, Eveline, did.
That comes through here. This is the double parlor. if you look up here, that's Hezekiah Smith. And if you look at the painting over here, that's Agnes Smith. That was his second wife. We don't have any documentation that shows when either one of them were married, because he had a first wife that was from Vermont, but she was also from Vermont. They were both from Vermont. This room was used for special events like birthdays, weddings. And if you stand right here, and you can look back and forth to the mirrors, you can see yourself over and over and over again. They're called infinity mirrors. Can you see?
Yep.
Yeah, it goes on. Go ahead, back over there. Hezekiah and Agnes, his second wife, they loved music. She played the piano and he played a fiddle. They also built a mechanics building that had 3 stories, and it had rooms upstairs for the men that worked at the factory. There were stores below it, and at the end there was an opera house, and they entertained a lot of people. Hezekiah was a very smart businessman and entrepreneur. He invented machinery to work with wood, and they traveled a lot. Agnes, his second wife, had no children, but he had 4 children by his first wife. The first was a daughter, and then she went to Lowell, Massachusetts, where he first started his business. And then scarlet fever came through, and people were dying of scarlet fever, so she took the baby and went back to Woodstock, Vermont. We know that Hezekiah went back several times because he had the son Elton, Edward, and Eugene. So he had 3 more sons by his first wife. So we'll go upstairs. You could go up after you can get my backside. So here I want to call your attention to the columns. The columns are they match the front of the mansion and the back of the mansion. It's a Greek revival style home when it was made. This is set up to be Agnes's room, and she was the editor of the Jersey Mechanic. So we have a desk in here to represent that. These are closets here. One closet on this side, one, and the door could be moved over here. This is Hezekiah's bedroom. The 4-poster bed belonged to the 11th President of the United States, President Polk. And if you look behind you, this is President Polk here at the bottom, and the other presidents. When the Shreves brothers built the mansion, there was no bathroom because there was no indoor plumbing at that time. So when Elton, the oldest son, inherited the village, he put in the bathroom. I'm going to call your attention to the light. In 1876, the first World's Fair was in Fairmount Park, Philadelphia, and they actually had the hand of Statue of Liberty in the park before it was taken up to Ellis Island, or the Statue of Liberty. The 2 lights here on the side, they were gas. That's original to the mansion, but they've been electrified. Here's one of the guest rooms. And the Rose Room has a guest room here. And here is a picture of the great-great-granddaughter, was a Dentmore. And She was named after her grandmother, Evelyn Verona English, was Hezekiah's first wife, and her name is Verona. We should have a date on here. Her name is Verona Smith. And now we're going to leave the main mansion. Watch your step. The main mansion ended here. You can see how thick the wall was. And this is called the apartment. So in the apartment, this is the ladies' parlor. And this room is set up to be the library. And that picture on the wall is of Elton and his children, 5 of his children. I think he had 7. This room is set up as a sewing room. And that chef robe is an original piece of furniture that was refinished. So here we have a bathroom and a modern kitchen that's been redone to look, it's very functional. It's where we have parties in the billiard room. This room is set up as the baby's room. Now we're going to leave the apartment and go into the annex. If you look outside, you see the framework of where the greenhouse used to be, the conservatory. They raise their own vegetables here, and there were tropical plants in there. And this hallway goes over to the gardener's house. Hezekiah had arthritis, so he had these walkways. Go ahead through. The floor is original in here. This is called the annex. The annex is used for artwork at different time periods. They have a cast iron door here. We think the reason this was here was to show, Hezekiah could show his business people what he could make. So this is a big, come either from a ship. We don't know, we can only speculate. But there's art on the wall, and the art changes frequently. When Grace Thomas bought this place, she wanted it to be an art colony. She rented out spaces for artists. The art changes through this year. This was, in Hezekiah's time, used as a dining room. And then when Elton lived here, his au pair, who taught his children didn't go to the schoolhouse. Hezekiah built the schoolhouse. He was very good to the employers. He didn't let children work in a factory. He believed in education, and he wanted the kids to be educated. Feel free to ask me a question if you have. We're going into the bar. This is where the men would come through. The women would stay in the parlor, the family parlor, in the back, the ladies' parlor, in the apartment. And then the men would come through and get a drink or hors d'oeuvre. And then they would come through here. This is the card room, and this table is the original piece of furniture. The story goes that there was a traveling judge playing cards with Hezekiah. He didn't like the way the game was going, so he tipped the table over. Hezekiah had his employees add this cast iron base. and said, "I'd like to see you tip this table over the next time the traveling judge came in." And it has these ashtrays built in all around the edge. There's a picture here of Hezekiah in his older years, his board of trustees, and the other picture is of the band. I told you Hezekiah and Agnes loved music, and Hezekiah had the H.B. Smith Traveling Military Band, and they would go around. Hezekiah ran for governor and used his band to do that. This is a picture of Hezekiah when he was older. And the moose, Hezekiah had a menagerie of animals, several species of deer, other animals, and he got a moose from Canada, and he trained it to pull a two-wheel cart. His man on the property pulled a two-wheel cart. And his name was February, because he got him in February. So go through. We're going to go into the billiard room. So the billiard room, we have a sample here of the American Star bicycle. There were many patents on this bicycle. The one at the wheel is attached, the rubber is attached to the wheel, and it's a ratchet system that goes up and down, so it went very fast. It was fashionable to have races. The big significant difference in this high wheeler is that the high wheel is in the back. Most of the high wheelers, the high wheel is in the front. There was a patent on the leaf seat, patent on the hand brakes. This was one of the styles. There were several styles. There was the racing style. And this bike won many races. This is the monorail. The monorail was invented by Hodgkins, and it went from here to Mount Holly, which was 2 miles. And at one point, there was only one railing. So if you met another bike at a certain spot, you could take this bike off the rail. The person could go through, and then you'd have to put the bike back on the rail. Go ahead, Forrest. That's the machinery that you're looking at now is the mortise machine. This blade was what cut the hole in the doors, and it was run by a pump. This is considered a portable machine in its time, and it weighs 200 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're gonna go through now. The lights are original. They were gas, and now they are also electrified. There were 2 billiard tables. We're going to go through into what we call the bowling alley. The ceiling is a tin roof. That's original, the tin. We know that this was used as a bowling alley because the bowling pins have been found. They would put a young man at the end, and then again, Hezekiah didn't have to climb steps to go from one area to another because of his arthritis. We use this as the annex. It's used as art display, art gallery throughout the year. It's free to come into throughout the year when we're open. And outside, the Shreves brothers had 3 rows of houses. When Hezekiah bought it, he had them removed, and he had 2 rows of houses, the duplexes, and then unfortunately there's only 1 row left. They've been renovated. One of them is used for the Underground Railroad Museum. The next one over is the workers' house, and the third one over is the office buildings. There is a wedding today, so you'll see things that are decorated, and I'll let you come through here and you can look. Get that in your picture. The tent outside is used for private events. Come over here so you can see the tent better. There you go. And that's the end of your tour. You can turn your camera off.